welcome to our Inuara seminar. We're delighted to welcome our speaker, Dr. Keith Silika, who is a former police officer and currently a lecturer in policing, specialising in researching harmful ritual practices, witchcraft accusations, and safeguarding within belief-based contexts. Keith's work sits at the intersection of policing, cultural criminology, artificial intelligence, child and adult protection, with a particular focus on translating complex belief-related harm into operationally usable frameworks for frontline professionals. Today, he's going to present Operation Sacred Ground, which is a practitioner-led research project that examines how witchcraft accusations and harmful ritual practices intersect with safeguarding failures, policing challenges, and cultural misunderstanding. So thank you so much, Keith. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, for that beautiful introduction, and welcome everybody to this Fool's Day Inuara presentation. It will be hopefully short, sweet, entertaining. I think people have got all sorts of things to do today. So that's me, yeah. So I'm a lecturer in policing. My background is in policing also. I was born in Zimbabwe, but there's an ethnographical element to my presentation in that I grew up around some of these practices in terms of family, etc. So today I'm going to be trying to be half academic and half ordinary person, because that's what I want to appeal to ordinary people, to try and understand some of the concepts. So I'm going to use a new framework in terms of teaching harmful practices in the context of witchcraft, using a method called Thingling. I'm going to use some of the digital forensics again to embed in trying to understand the context of harmful practices investigation. I might pepper around with some highlights of my findings of my project that I'm writing on, a monograph which I will introduce. I'll talk briefly about the Spirit app, the structured protocol for investigating intangible threats. I did a bit of a wordplay on that one so that it can appeal to local people and everybody else to what it is about. And as an academic, we are also forced to play around with theory when we are introducing concepts. But also these concepts, this theory is quite useful in terms of understanding harmful practices in a criminological context, because that's also local people in understanding the wider criminological concepts that foster crime. And I'm going to talk briefly about my risk assessment tool that I found, that I stumbled upon recently and put together. So those are the things I will be covering about. So the background to this presentation is I've got Liverpool University Press book contract. So the provisional title is Dark Sides of Detection. So that is the mother of all some of the whole project is based around this book. So different chapters and different concepts are all stemming from this book. The background of the book is I want to look at witchcraft harmful practice in a forensic context in terms of offenders, victims, location, forensic evidence. I'll be looking at fibers, objects, body parts, body types, body harvesting, and all those material that I look at. So I'll be very, very embedded in forensic tech. It takes on from my PhD, which was by forensic archaeological investigation into mass graves. So almost similar methodology. So the book is the bedrock of most of the work I'm doing at the moment. And I'm quite lucky enough that I teach on safeguarding and policing. So I'm borrowing concepts from where I teach as well in safeguarding. I teach on internet risk and security, practice of policing, and critical criminology. So all those elements that I teach in my background have been quite useful in me in terms of me approaching harmful practices research and working with Inuara. So I think some of you might not know about the nature of the problem. So I'm looking at harmful practices in terms of where individuals actually killed, some people actually be consumed, eaten. So all over Africa at the moment, I'll show you my next slide. every other day there's an abduction of a child, a female. And not all the material is recorded. We only capture what we can from what's reported in the news, what's been reported by family members. And so it's very difficult to capture witchcraft and harmful practices. But we've got two methods that I've tried to do that I'll see whether that works or not. Me and Dr. Burrito, who's going to be presenting in 2 weeks, he's got a software that is developed to kind of capture this, that we're going to be talking about this together, because it's very, very difficult to capture the numbers in terms of number of people killed. Yeah, so it involves anybody, any place from, I'm mainly looking at Southern Africa, but cases from North are quite similar in terms of modus operandi, offenders, what they do. In particular in Africa at the moment, there's what we call occult economies, where there's loads of mining communities because of this discovery of various minerals in Southern Africa, in places such as Zambia, Malawi. There's loads of minerals, and within those communities, there's loads of poverty, lack of education, and as a result of that, people seek the nearest opportunity that they can. There's a belief within these communities that certain body parts will help in terms of finding more minerals within the ground. So it can be male or female, as in some cases in Zimbabwe, one on the screen there, where a grandmother actually killed her own grandchild, for ritual purposes. And so that's kind of the grim nature of the problem. So these cases are replicated in different parts of Southern Africa and North Africa as well, as you saw in the documentary on Sierra Leone, pretty much the similar issue. So that's the nature of the problem. And then how am I capturing my data? In this context, I'm using Google Alert to capture kind of the media data that comes through. So those who are not familiar, Google Alert is just one way of saying, if I want to capture anything that Inawara is doing, I'll go to Google and I say Inawara, and every time Inawara sneezes an article, I get an email. And so you can apply this to police, use this in some context. I use this for my PhD as well. People are looking at like the killings in Palestine, where they're using similar methods. So you just have to be careful in which phrase you use. So sometimes I might use ritual killing, harmful practices. So you just have to play around and ask Google what it comes back with. So ritual killing seems to be popular, bring about some good material for me to analyze. And also I can use other products such as Elicit to say, can you analyze this batch of because sometimes it repeats itself. So I've got a daily, almost like sometimes a daily like input of some crime, of some ritual crime. And I'm also doing interviews with human rights defenders in Southern Africa, even in North. I'm speaking mainly to police officers that I'm mainly interested in, because I want to look at the policing aspects. As a former practitioner there, and with friends who still work within this area. And I'm looking at court records, court cases. As some of you might be aware, I've commented on some Zambian court cases in which objects and all the similar elements are involved. So that's kind of my methodology, says to say in academic language. So that's the direction that which I'm traveling in. So these are my main kind of elements. I'm looking at the offenders, the victims, the objects, locations, because as a former police officers, this is what we do. And when we do some training as well, this is what we look at in terms of different types of crimes. So in one of my modules called Safeguarding Policing, we don't only look at harmful practices. I look at incels, terrorism, any other safeguarding kind of issue online. So harmful practice is only one of 11 kind of projects that I run each semester. So again, we look at the same thing. So I'm looking at victims, victim age, location. Generally speaking, as you know from my data, mostly female, mostly young. Offender, we're looking at mostly the person, the individuals in the context in which I'm looking at. The individuals who do the actual killing are mostly young men. And the perpetrators are kind of bifurcated. There's a bifurcation of offenders in terms of sometimes there's a healer or witch doctor, and that witch doctor has a client. So that's the kind of matrix. A client, he wants a thing. It could be anything. You can use your imagination. In terms of harmful practices, them of body parts, they could be after a breast, a cheek, an ear, anything that you can think of. So that's how it works on. And also I'm looking at location. Locations are quite important, especially in Africa, because of the availability of land and how it is built up. Locations kind of seem to be similar. I was looking at if any has not seen the documentary in Sierra Leone, where they take body parts, certain location, do certain procedures in certain location. So those locations are a breed for forensic evidence in terms of fiber, object, foil, all that stuff. That we teach on that. So it's so these are the main kind of elements I'm looking at. And then on the back of that, for example, offenders, there's a very interesting aspects in terms of profiling offenders, which actually resulted in I'm actually doing the International Behavioral Conference in Poland this year. I'm looking at, they were very interested in my behavioral analysis of offenders within witchcraft cases in terms of how they meet and how they describe each other and how they repeat these offenses with impunity. So there's so much stuff in terms of just analyzing one element, the elements of the offenders. They're quite interesting because some of their antics and activities are not known, and some of these play, some of it is, so they use hallucinogens in some instances, they use all sorts of tricks to get their ways and means. So understanding those elements is very important in terms of understanding harmful practices, in terms of detection, prevention, and prevention of offenders. Because those elements all come together. If you take one or two of those elements, you can break down that that kind of harmful practices, and we can also then be able to interpret the sequence of events, the reason for the events, and what we can do better in the future. So a bit of theory here, basically in terms of me developing my monograph, in terms of me developing my app, in terms of me developing new knowledge, because as an academic, I always push to develop new knowledge. I develop a theory in terms of investigation of ritual crimes, it's called ritual ecological forensics, it's called REF. Academics will not love that because it's used in academic language, the REF language, but it suits well because it combines two other elements in terms of the ecology of a ritual crime scene. It's got innate elements that are not present in a conventional crime scene, such as the presence of feathers, the presence of effigies, the presence of certain innate objects that are not found in certain crime scenes. So I combined two theories to come up with ritual ecological forensics. The aim being that it helps to hold the mirror to the individuals, the offenders, and the investigating officers on what elements that we should be looking at in terms of investigating. So it's a fusion between routine activities theory and forensic counter narratives to combine those. Routine activities theory positions that in order for an offense to occur, there has to be the lack of a capable guardian, suitable offender, and target. In witchcraft cases, as we saw in the previous slide, REF will look at offender, victim, and lack of a suitable guardian. A suitable guardian will be somebody like a police officer, community leader, somebody with knowledge, social worker, etc. So that's kind of the trying to explain the theory in a way. I hope it made sense to people. I'll entertain questions later on. So Operation Second Ground. Second Ground is just, as you know, ground that's not been traded upon in African context. I did another wordplay there because I know that it works. The wordplay is always, to those who are in the police use a lot of wordplay in their operations because it makes officers understand the acronyms. There's like, if anyone ever joined the police or forensics, there's like 30 acronyms that you need to remember within this those areas. So I'm taking some of that into these practices. So okay, Operation Second Ground will be the investigation of a harmful incident involving some of the characters that I illustrate on the previous slide. So it will have 3 routes. Yeah, it will be route 1 will be involving the police, because they will be the first on the scene. And according to my plan, when I do this, I think I think Bayero will take this one when you do the actual one when you invite a practitioner. So we have route 1, which involve police, because police have to secure the route, they have to secure the offenders, and then they have to secure evidence. So when I'll give you a brief illustration in the second route, and then the second route will be this scenes of crime route. So these are the one who process the evidence, the fibers, the soil, if there's any soil, the hallucinogens, if they are there, because people don't aware that sometimes in crimes involving harmful practices, there is what call like a bit of a play there, because some of the crime scenes involve the presence of objects that are unconventional. Sometimes they will have hallucinogens in there, and sometimes they'll have snakes, doves, anything of that nature. So that needs to be handled forensically handled quite well, so that evidence is not lost. So that will be the second route for the investigation that I'll illustrate. And the third route will be the psychology or social work or behavioral route, because it's important to understand the behavior of the individuals involved these, because if we profiling the individuals, there's a pattern to them. And if we understand the pattern, we can understand the behavior, and we can stem and we can be able to get a grasp of the origins, and come up with methods of detection and prevention within that context. So this will be the scenario in which they will be looking at. So I actually ran this last week for the harmful practices. So students were allocated different routes to pursue, which I will show in the next slide. So this is what we call the builder's block. So in the next slide, it will be quite clear. I hope it's not very confusing. So this is the block in which I build. So I do build different blocks for each scenario. So as I illustrated in the police route, it will have maybe 20 different blocks in which students or people want to train will have to go through certain triggers in terms of when they arrive at the scene, what to do at the scene, what not to do at the scene. And also there's an opportunity to break the app. If they don't follow procedure, the app will challenge them. Yeah. And also they've got the opportunity to break the app, which I'll be notified, and I'll explain more in a minute. So this is what we call operation. That's the block. That's what I will see. The students or practitioner won't see, but me and Dr. Bayero, as you can see there, and Dr. Felicia will be running this. When people log in, they'll go through either my route, Dr. Bayero route, or Dr. Koluchi route, and they will meet at the end. So this is what I'll try and see if one of these links will work for me. Hopefully, can we all see?
No, we can't see, Keith.
You can't see anything, right? Okay, just give me a second. I had plan A and plan B, not to worry. Right, just give me a second. This happens with technology, by the way. Bear with me. If we can't see, I've got plan B anyway. I was anticipating that because the app is quite tricky. So what they see anyway, the students will be something like this. So this is a very interactive scene. So each element there, as you can see, is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. The students, practitioners have to go and analyze each element in that. So I can actually turn this into a VR. You can wear a VR suit if you want to, or I can convert this into an actual room where you can actually go and touch the object. We can also put sounds to match whatever environment. If you say you want sounds from Angola, the software has got sounds from Angola or language for Angola or context that I can put. So it's quite interesting that the world is my oyster in terms of with this particular platform. So this is what the student have to go. So if you're on So this is particular will be on this is the scenes of crime route. So these are the scenes of crime. So they have to go and negotiate all these elements within the crime scene and try and determine, like, are we going to seize this? Are we going to test this? Are we going to photograph this? And why? And they have to report to me on the app as well, which I'll illustrate in a minute. So this is what kind of like a small element within one of the elements that I've just described on the previous one. I'll put some in the chat later on, see if they'll work in there. Unfortunately, they didn't work in there, but that is the general kind of outlook of scenes. So I'll have probably, as you could see within the block, I've got how many of these? I probably have like 40 of these altogether with different elements, but it all fits in the end when we are finishing this scenario. So these scenarios will normally take, depending on the level of the individuals, you normally take about maybe 30 to 40 minutes to complete with some prompts and one person obviously directing and also misdirecting in some instances, because that's quite important for people to learn, because crime scenes come with very interesting and kind of challenging elements. So that's how it kind of works. So it's called a thing like this. It's freely available for most universities. You can, so it's used in medical training. So I just borrowed that. Actually, our university actually did a simulation with people in Uganda where they made prosthetics. So they were measuring the kids online here, and they were 3D printing whatever prosthetic limb that been lost. So you can actually do more. You can print some stuff if in different places. If you decide, okay, print that, there's so much we could do with this particular platform. So in addition to that, I'll be embedding a risk assessment tool within my app, which I'll describe, and also within the scenario. Yeah, because it's important, particularly on the behavior analysis unit. A risk assessment tool is also, I borrowed this by combining risk assessment tools in psychology and policing and putting them together, because I wanted to capture novel risk assessment tools which are already available, and then look at interesting elements within harmful practices that are not found in other elements, if that makes sense. So it's a 25 risk assessment tool in which any practitioner, so this element can be done, for example, by people on the behavioral analysis unit, so they can interview a suspect and do analysis there. I can actually give the suspect a voice and answer some questions, some prompts, and give them, and then the student or practitioner can then mark and say, okay, this person is a red flag based on this element and that element. So it's quite straightforward. I've made this freely available. It's also embedded within the app itself. So why am I talking about the app a lot? Yeah, it's basically structured protocol for investigating tangible threats. So it's a prototype at the moment, and I still have a bit to do with it. So it's, again, looking at the elements that I've started from the beginning: offender profiling, victim location. So we can upload. So this interface is similar to the ones that are used in police. Maybe I might say this one is even better because it's built by a better AI system called Replate. So with Replate, I've got a platform there where I can build literally anything. So if you've got data about anything, you can build a tool or you can build an app. So that's my prototype app. It's got dashboard. So it's, at the moment, it's open source. It's nothing live, no real cases there. It's just to play around with. It might become closed when we decide to move it away. I might move it away because of sensitivity around ethics. If some, say the police force in Malawi wants to use it in some capacity, I'll have to build a stack for them. So I've got some stacks to build, because when you're doing analysis, I want to make sure it has elements that have context, if that makes sense. So on the back of all the other stuff that I've just mentioned in terms of the theory, the Thingling app, it gave me the idea, what can I do in app? Because everyone is developing an app about something anyway at the moment. So that will be the app. So within the scenario, when I ran it last week, I'll be on the app and the students will be feeding me information about the offender, about the profile, about the location, and I'll be giving them prompts. And also the app will be actually telling me I can make it live. It can actually tell me like, okay, because you're in Malawi, for example, and there's this community, they do this context, consider these elements. Ultimately, while we've got app, the human being has to make most of the decisions because it's an app, it's been developed by data, and data can be tricky and data can be false, and AI system can hallucinate. So what does it do? What does it not do? It does not detect witches. People were asking me, I got loads of messages. Keith, what does the app do? Well, no. It's just simple. I'm looking straight at signs. I'm looking at nothing a bit crazy, if I say. I'm not looking at, is the person is possessed or not? No, we're using a risk assessment tool if that's the case. Yeah, it doesn't remove. I'm not looking at cases and things like that. We're using ref. We're using practical tools that we know we normally use everywhere. Yeah, it's not going to predict supernatural outcomes. Although I was thinking about it, because of now AI can predict crimes, maybe my app might predict future harmful practices. We don't know yet. So yeah, so that's what it does and what does it doesn't do basically. So that is basically my Operation Sacred Ground. So it's one element of many that I ran. So I thought this is quite apt in terms of helping individuals that are in the context of what we look at in Awara. I think it's a quite useful tool, training package. There's a lot to be unpacked. So I had to make sure that I make this 30 minutes because there's a lot to unpack in each and all the elements. I can talk about the app on itself for half an hour because there's loads of elements in there. I could talk about offender profiling on its own. Objects is also a very interesting area that I don't cover a lot because objects in crime scenes are quite important in terms of interpretation, in terms of tracing individuals and things that come with that. So I'll be running Operation Sacred Ground 2 soon. And anybody who's interested, just send me an email saying which route do you want. Make sure they say you want to be police, behavior analysis, or you want to do scenes of crime. And then I'll assign you to the route, and I'll send you an email, and then you can join me in day to look at those elements. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Keith. Wow, there's a lot to think about in there, and I'm sure there'll be some questions from colleagues in the room. So I'll open up the floor to questions, but otherwise I have a couple I could ask. So please raise your hand or switch your camera on if you'd like to ask, or you can use the chat as well if you have any questions for Keith.
Don't be shy.
Miranda, thank you.
Hey Keith, yeah, that's fantastic. I'm wondering what outside of the university context, what sort of context are you envisaging that it's going to be used, and how are you going to how are you going to do training of people in it? Is it for police forces sort of around in Africa? Are you thinking also in the UK context? Because I know that this is also an issue in the UK. Yeah, what's the plan for getting it out of universities and into the sort of the real world?
Yeah, I have to deal with what do you call it? Intellectual property issues at the moment is, but anyway, I will solve that. I personally paid for the app myself, and I'm managing it myself. And in terms of getting out there, I think it can be used as a training tool because there's so many training tools for various things out there, and B, it can also be used as an investigation tool. For example, in the UK, they've got what we call Holmes. That's it. It's a major investigation tool. So it's only used by police forces within UK. So it can what we call licensing. I can licensing for example, for Malawi, and build a stack for Malawi or Zambia and say, like, okay, these are your crimes, these are the patterns, these are the behaviors, and they can use that as an internal tool for investigation their own internal. So it can be used. It can be a humanitarian app or it can be a commercial app. So I'm yet to decide which way to go. And also I had to get it out early because I took advice from somebody who was building something else to say, Keith, just build a prototype and get it out there because you want to be in that space quite early, and then decide as you get along, is it more useful, as I say, when I do it teaching? Is it more useful when I speak, when I do some scenarios with police officers? So that's the space I'm in at the moment.
Fantastic, thank you. I had a question, and it relates to something you said quite early on, which is about the appeal to ordinary people. And I was thinking about, how you're going to use a language that's accessible to non-specialists, or people who are coming across this language of harmful practices, ritual attacks, spirit possession for the first time. So maybe could you just talk us through some of the things you've considered in thinking through the language you're going to use and the audiences for your work?
In terms of the app on its own, or in terms of the operation?
I guess because you work between different audiences, so there's the academic audience, which we're all aware, uses a very specific language. Policing clearly uses a very specific vocabulary and all these acronyms, as you said. And then you've got the general public and colleagues on the ground who you're trying to engage. So how have you managed language in different ways across those contexts?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I do well, as somebody who's bilingual in different cultures, I would do what we call code switching. For example, when I was teaching with the policing student, it's police language. And when I'm going to have to run it, for example, I've not run this with practitioners there, or for example, with certain different types of groups, I'll have to adapt to that language. I'm going to employ something called Claw, and it's going to design for me different aspects. If I'm speaking with social workers, and because cultural aspects of harmful practices are so A, complex, as we all know, and B, they've got different facets. And sometimes you almost feel like you're threading on eggs, if you're trying to put across certain points. So yes, I've got to be very mindful that when I'm going in that direction, because I might appear as if I'm very dismissive of certain issues. That's why, for example, if you look at my risk assessment tool, I recognize cultural elements, and the questions that I ask in the risk assessment tool are not directly challenging any of your beliefs, but an individual's interpretation, so people can make a decision, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I will do a bit of code switching and adapting depending on audience, because it's very, very, even I myself, I'm from a very difficult, a certain cultural background. Even speaking to my colleagues from that background, I get so many raised eyebrows, like, "Oh, Keith, what's this?" And then but after a conversation, the light bulbs come on normally 9 out of 10. So yeah, that will be my approach.
Thank you. My other question was whether you could say a bit more about your book. You passed over it quite quickly, but it sounds really fascinating, and it's, if it's coming out in 2026, how's that going? Could you give us a brief sort of overview of the key sort of themes of the book?
Right, okay, put me on the spot. It's a PhD thesis on its own. Yeah, so the book is called Dark Sciences and Detection, Forensic Approaches to Harmful Practices in Southern Africa. So I'm looking at forensic aspects of harmful practices in terms of what I've mentioned, in terms of investigation, crime scene processing, offender profiling, victim profiling, location profiling, evidence retrieval in a crime scene, because some crime scenes in harmful practices have got bifurcated, if I say the word correctly, it's got embedded elements that are not found in certain elements. So I'm trying to highlight that. I'm also trying to highlight certain, and also looking to body mapping. I'll be looking at, I've got a chapter on body mapping, which body parts are being taken, why, what's the interpretation, and how can we break that? So 12 chapters covering those elements, and also I'll be adding risk assessment tools as well. So it's a half practitioner book, half forensic book. No, a third, it's criminology, forensics, and culture.
Amazing. Really looking forward to reading that. Thank you. So I can see, Sunny, you have your hand up. Please, come on. Ask your question. Hello, hi.
He's going. You're on mute, Sunny.
Sorry.
That's
You
good.
were
We can
mute.
hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. So, Mr. Kate, this nice presentation is really nice, and I think it's this your secret operation will really help us. As I told you, I'm the head of forensic in Nigeria, so we are finding it very challenging in investigating this kind of ritual crimes. Like I told you, I was the divisional officer in a state, in Jigawa State, where I received much of this kind of cases in villages. And even currently, most of our villages, we have this kind of issues where the divisional officers are really finding it very challenging. So sometimes when we receive this kind of case, we normally forward it to the court, like to the customary courts or the Sharia courts, where from there they use the kind of oath taking to confess whether the victim has done such kind of crime or not. So currently in Nigeria, that's the only way we use to find whether a victim has done that such kind of crime. It can only be confirmed in courts and using oath taking within the Quran or the Bible to swear that you are not the one that committed such kind of offenses. So this your initiative will really help us. I really hope that we can get this your app, and so that we can use it to really help us and in gathering data of the crimes, such this kind of crimes that are happening, and the real ones and the ones that are based on allegations and issues like that. So it's really a nice project, and I really hope that we can get this kind, and I'm hoping to see this your book too. It can really help us in managing this kind of crimes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Sonny. We're working together
Yes.
anyway, so we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great. It's really great to hear that support from, people working on the ground and recognizing the issue and the value of the work you're doing. So that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, are there any final questions before we close?
I've placed some stuff in the chat. I don't know whether it's opening for you guys. I don't know if
Yeah,
there's
the
it open.
second one's opened. Yeah.
Second one is open,
link's
yeah?
open. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
looks
that's
great.
basically the scene that they will see when they go to crime scene. So they have to go through those prompts, otherwise they won't go into the scene. So that speaks to what Sunny just said, those kind of elements. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. If you want the slides, I'll just email me. I'll send you over the slides anyway.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Keith. It's been really, really interesting morning. Thank you for your contribution. And we'll look forward to our next seminar, which will be next month, and we'll circulate details about that.
Thank you.